Hi, my name is DeShaun Silas Jordan, and I am the mom behind Little Learner and Mom blog, as well as Little Learner and Mom and Middle Schooler and Mom's IG. Today's topic is one that has transformed my homeschool and how I think about school and education altogether. When many people hear the word interest led learning, they immediately assume it means letting children do whatever they want. They picture kids playing video games all day or refusing to learn subjects that they don't enjoy. But that is not what we're talking about today. Interest led learning is about discovering what naturally sparks curiosity in a child and using that curiosity as a bridge to meaningful, rigorous academic learning. I believe that every child has unique interests, talents, and gifts. Those interests aren't distractions from learning, they become the very foundation of learning. Today, I'm going to share with you the framework that you can begin as soon as today. Whether your child loves gaming, sense science, art, music, sports, law like my kiddo, or technology, or history, or something completely different, you can transform those interests into an educational experience that is engaging. So let's dive in. I like to start with the question. Think about your child for just a moment. What do they naturally gravitate to? What videos do they watch? What books do they reach for? What questions do they ask over and over again? What could they spend hours talking about without getting tired? For some children, it's animals. For others, it's baking. Maybe it's basketball, coding, music, medicine, or even Minecraft. Whatever it is, that spark matters because curiosity is one of the greatest motivators we have as human beings. Children are naturally designed to learn. The question isn't whether they want to learn, the question is whether we are connected learning to something they already care about. One of the greatest lessons homeschooling has taught me is that children do not all learn the same way. Some thrive with textbooks, others need to move, some need discussions, others need projects. Some learn best through reading, others through building, experimenting, creating, or performing. When education becomes personal, motivation changes. Instead of asking, do I have to do this? Children begin asking, can I learn more? That is completely different type of mindset. Interest led learning doesn't mean abandoning academic subjects. Science becomes anatomy and nutrition. History becomes history of civil rights and sports. Economics becomes contract and salaries. Geography becomes studying cities where teams are located. One interest suddenly connects to almost every subject that you're teaching your student. Let's imagine another child loves baking. Now we have fractions, chemistry, measurements, nutrition, business, marketing, writing recipes, world cultures through food. Again, one passion becomes an entire interdisciplinary learning experience. Maybe your child is interested in gaming. Many parents see gaming as something they have to fight against. Instead, ask yourself what skills are already being developed? Problem solving, reading, storytelling. It doesn't mean throwing away curriculum. It doesn't mean never teaching these difficult subjects. Instead, it means asking a different question. Instead of beginning with, what chapter are we supposed to be covering today? We begin with, what is my child passionate about? Then we ask, how can I connect reading, writing, math, science, history, critical thinking to this passion? That shifts, changes everything for your student. I like to call this simple framework that I use passion to purpose planning framework. Step one is discovering the spark. Observe your child, listen carefully, pay attention to what they choose when no one else is directing them. Interests often reveal future strengths. Let me give you an example. My son was a die-hard, I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon from third grade all the way up until sixth/seventh grade. I enrolled him in an online class for law. At first, this was just getting him acclimated with learning for someone beside myself. But what ended up happening is him falling in love with law. He absolutely loved it. Cardiothoracic surgeon was his dream. That's all he wanted to talk about. We bought the books, we bought the kits, we did everything. But then something shifted in him. Another spark was lit. And the first thing he said to me, Mom, this is it. This is what I want to do. So, of course, we did like we always do. We moved into creating an entire world for him where it was surrounded by law. The same thing we did with cardiothoracic surgery. Now, what you need to do is step 2. Make academic connections. Let's imagine your child loves basketball. Reading becomes sports biographies. Writings become game analysis. Math becomes statistics and percentages. From YouTube to entrepreneurship, our job isn't to predict their future. Our job is to cultivate curiosity in our students while teaching the academic skills they'll need wherever they are in life. Now, was I a little upset after I spent the fortune on medical books? Absolutely not. Those books still sit on our shelves today, and we still occasionally use them. We're moving into the next part of biology this upcoming year, and so I know those books will still come in handy. But I do know that his passion for law has run deep because I have watched and observed him over the last several years, and I know that is where he wants to be. Now, one concern I hear often is, but what about the subjects they don't like? That is a fair question. Interest-led learning doesn't eliminate that challenge at all, guys. In fact, children still need to write. They still need math. They still need to read. The difference is the context. Instead of writing 5 random paragraphs, maybe they're writing a proposal for their own business. Instead of solving abstract percentages, maybe they're calculating basketball statistics. Instead of reading generic passages, they are researching marine biology because they are fascinated by sharks. The academic expectation remains high. The motivation changes. Now, what I can give you guys a great example of this is my son absolutely did not like to write anything. And 3 years ago, we found a writing teacher that lit a spark in him. Now, don't get me wrong. As long as he was writing something that he was interested in, like music, he loved to write about his dad, I get a full paragraph out of him. But anything else that was academic related, it was like he didn't even know where to start the first word. But I found a teacher that sparked an interest in him, and she developed that spark. And now my son loves to write. He actually won one of the contests that is ran by a very respected homeschool writing curriculum that we've used for the last several years. So she developed that spark. She saw that spark and she cultivated it. While I was just the mom saying, okay, we got to hit this checkbox. You got to learn how to write. But because I wasn't going about it the right way and she was, it worked out great. I also love to plan unit studies. And on this frame that you see here is one of the unit studies that I created for him when he was really into wanting to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. We went ahead and we invested in a medical investigations curriculum, and we also did some other things. My son also likes to cook. Here recently, he's been taking a cooking class online, and he really does love it. And another time, he was really interested in anything that had to do with Genghis Khan. And so, in one of his history curriculums, I found something, and we did some chalk art, and he really did love it. So we continue to cultivate other things that he loves, but we also are intentional by making sure that there are things that we can use that will help him develop where he wants to be. Now, let's look at it from another perspective. I also encourage families to think beyond worksheets. Learning happens everywhere: museums, libraries, national parks, anywhere that you can find. Logic, collaboration, strategy, coding, probability, digital design, economics, creative writing. No, we don't simply just let children play games all day, those of us who do interest led learning. We are intentional by the things that we bring in with that interest. But we recognize that the interest itself can become the doorway to deeper learning. One example that is especially meaningful for me is, like I told you, was my son's interest in law. That interest right there opened doors to government, constitutional studies, persuasive writing, debate, public speaking, ethics, psychology, current events, research, and even history. Instead of forcing those subjects separately, they naturally connected around one meaningful goal. Learning became purposeful for him because there was a reason behind it. And again, like I said, you do get those challenges. And so you have to make sure that while you are cultivating that passion and that love for that interest, that you make sure those things that are challenging, that you're still hitting them too. Quick story. My son absolutely detests math. Anything that have to do with math, which is a huge shocker to me because he does so well in math. He's done so well that he is 13 years old and he has already knocked out 3 high school credits before we could even begin our journey into the high school. So, for a kid that didn't love math, he's doing pretty well. And one of the reasons why is because I brought in things that would help him cultivate somewhat a love for math, even though he says he doesn't like math. But I found something that worked well for him, and we've seen great growth in him. One thing that I do encourage parents is to remember is that interests evolve. Your child today isn't necessarily your child from 3 years ago. Trust me, my child is not the same child from 3 years ago. With all the weird things growing in my refrigerator, all the different projects and things going, he is not the same kiddo. As you can see in this slide here, you will see that his interest has evolved as he has grown up. Like right now, he's into forensic science. That's still cultivating his love for law. He asked me, could he learn about World War II? And I was like, okay, this past summer. But I asked him, I said, well, what about World War II do you want? Because I could have spit out all kinds of things, why it kicked off, all that great stuff. He was like, no, I want to know about from the black and brown experience. So what did I do? I put together a unit study for him with regards to the black and brown experience, and he has learned so much. He's learned about very important people that fought in World War II that were black and brown, how the code talkers were huge. So for him, it wasn't so much about he was asking, Mom, can you give me a book about World War One, or can you spit all these dates out and what happened? He was intentional about what he wanted to learn. Another thing that I can tell you is that this past year, he had an opportunity to go on his first college tour. And this is a school that he absolutely loves, and he has really wanted to go to this school. But how this interest came about is because every single day for 2 years, we drove past this university to get to our homeschool co-op, and it sparked his interest. He started doing research about this school that I didn't even know that he was already doing. So when I told him, I was like, hey, they have an open house, let's go. Instant. He went in there on his own and he found those departments that will cultivate his love for law. He visited the humanities department, he visited political science, he went to the English department. He was intentional. He wanted to know what did he need to do? One, to get to this school. Two, to reach his goal. That's how I knew he was serious, because no longer was I in charge of the learning. He had taken full control over what his goal was and what he wanted to do. Your child, like I said, is not the child from 3 years ago, but that is okay. Education should grow alongside them. I've watched students move from different things to another thing time and time again, even with my own student. From Legos to engineering, from drawing to agriculture. These kids are making a difference and they are leading the way of what they want to do. Local businesses, volunteer opportunities, community organizations, apprenticeships, and interviews, traveling, cooking together, and gardening and building projects. These experiences create memories that often last longer than completing another workbook page. Projects become something that is intentional. One of my favorite ways to plan is through project based learning. Projects naturally combine multiple subjects. And imagine a child interested in fashion that could simply just study textile learning. These are how we solve those common challenges and we come up with great solutions. Research cultural clothing traditions around the world. Write a business plan. Calculate the pricing. Learn photography. Create an advertisement. Present a final fashion showcase. One project touches dozens of academic subject areas. Another important point is that interest led learning prepares your student for real life. Adults rarely separate life into neat academic categories. At work, we read, we write, we research, we communicate, we solve problems, and we create all at the same time. That is exactly what interdisciplinary learning encourages. Parents sometimes tell me, I'm not an expert in my child's interests. You don't have to be, because I am not an expert in cardiothoracic surgeon or anything cardio. But my child was. So that means that I had to get on board. Some of the best learning happens when parents become co learners. You model curiosity. You ask those questions. You research together. You visit experts. You read books together. You learn alongside your child. That teaches something even more valuable than facts. It teaches lifelong learners. For my student, I learned so much during our homeschool journey that I had no clue about. That I learned right alongside him. And he found it very interesting when I said, baby, I didn't know anything of this. So I'm learning right there with you. Now, before I wrap up, I like everyone to think about one question. If you could redesign one thing or learning experience this year around something that your child absolutely loves, what would it be? Maybe it's creating a history unit around music. Maybe it's building a science study around animals. Maybe it's connecting math to entrepreneurship. Start small. One project, one unit, one book, one field trip. You don't have to change everything overnight. Small changes often create the biggest impacts. I'll leave you with this final thought. Every child has been created with unique gifts. Those gifts deserve to be noticed. Their interest deserves to be explored. Their curiosity deserves to be nurtured. Education isn't simply about preparing children for tests. It is about preparing them for purpose. When we help children connect what they love with what they learn, education becomes something they own, not something that's done to them. And that's where real learning begins. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I hope you leave encouraged, inspired, and excited to discover what passions are already waiting to become powerful learning opportunities in your home. And if you would love to follow me and see more about our journey, please feel free to visit us on Little Learner and Mom's blog, as well as Little Learner and Mom's Instagram. And if you got a middle schooler, you can come on over to Middle Schooler and Mom as well. Thank you again for your time and enjoy the rest of the conference.